public health impacts. But there is no one on this commission that represents the Pennsylvania Department of Health. The Pennsylvania Department of Health is the only institution in this state that actually works by a kind of Hippocratic oath that they can do no harm when it comes to the public health, and they have to do things correctly. And yet they haven't been invited to be part of this panel. But I think what's equally telling here is that the Department of Health in this state routinely works with the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, and they are and keeps looking at problems related to environmental health and disease. And I think the exclusion of the Department of Health in this matter is really to exclude the prying eyes of federal regulators into this issue. How can we talk about public health when there's never been surveillance carried out on the population? At the Center for Healthy Environments and Communities at the University of Pittsburgh, I personally have talked to scores of people with perceived health problems associated with Marcellus shale gas drilling, and also the cleaning of gas and the compression of gas. Now, I'm not saying that those are related to the gas operation, but what I am saying is that you cannot get to public health truth without doing disease surveillance, and that there can be no disease surveillance unless the Department of Health is involved. They're the only ones that have that kind of cachet at the state level. Now, I want to talk really briefly about three big issues that I think are really important here. The first of all, the first problem that I think is not only a problem in this state, but across the country, is that essentially drilling operators have no regulations on where they can site these wells.
There's no regulations at all, period.
There are no regulations at all to determine essentially how close one of these well pads can be to a school, to critical infrastructure like sewage treatment plants, bridges, roads, schools, hospitals, etc. This is a public health problem. Why? Folks, we are all spending and paying taxes, and the government is spending tens of billions of dollars a year to make critical infrastructure not a hard target for terrorists. Here we have a process where we are citing facilities that can have a catastrophic blowout, that can have, number two, critical fires, and number three, explode in residential neighborhoods. This does not make any public health sense, and it is poor public health policy. The second big issue here is one that we know when we analyze the violations at Marcellus shale wells, that they have between 1.5 to 4 times the amount of serious violations that we find in conventional oil and gas wells. You know, folks, we were sold a bill of goods here with this process. This is not your grandmother and grandfather's natural gas extraction. Just take a look at it and see what it is. It bears no resemblance, and the violations bear no resemblance to the violations from conventional oil and gas. And the kinds of violations we're seeing are very serious when one thinks about the kinds of impacts they can have on our water supply. We see violations increased around erosion and sedimentation problems, about pollution into the waters of the Commonwealth. Air is another issue. And we see all kinds